What is the difference between a missionary and just a Christian that tells whoever about Jesus that they come across?
Right. Well, and to be honest with you, that is where some of the semantics kind of comes into play.
Okay.
Because it's like, am I like when, like, so for example, sometimes you'll see in churches, like they'll like on like kind of like the way out of the church or maybe the way out of the church parking lot, there'll be a sign that will say, now entering the mission field.
Okay.
And so therefore they would say everyone in the church is a missionary as soon as they're like leaving the church.
No.
And so that everybody's a missionary. So,
Okay.
yeah, but you're just like, no, that's not the case.
Now everyone's a doctor whenever they take any medicine.
Right. I'm taking ibuprofen.
Yeah,
call me
I'm a doctor.
Right. So,
But you are really a doctor.
well, but I am. But anyway.
Yeah.
So I think like that's one. Like I think that's one example, right? On one side,
Okay.
where like everybody's basically a missionary. If they're as soon as they leave the church and they're going to go about representing Christ in the world, they're a missionary. Okay, they're one sent
Okay.
into society to tell people about Christ and to share God's love, those kind of things. Then you get the other maybe view of missionaries are only those who leave and basically take up residence in another country.
So I have to live there.
You have to live there, like
Okay.
not going on a mission trip
Okay.
for 2 weeks, not even going to spend a summer down there. No, you're going, and that's where
Okay.
you're living.
I have to get a mortgage on a mud hut somewhere.
something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, but you've got to be out of the country. That's a missionary. And so like, and it doesn't really necessarily matter where you're going. I mean, because like there'll be like individuals. I remember one time I was in Brazil, and they were talking about missionaries from Brazil coming to the United States. And so like they were,
Okay.
that's what they viewed like these people were going to the United States to evangelize, to live here. They're missionaries.
That's BS.
Why is that BS?
Because America's awesome.
We don't need no missionary. Yeah.
No, it's not that we don't need missionaries. It's just like they're going to a better
better
place to be a missionary.
Right. Well, I think that's
I'd like to get sponsored to go to America.
Well, but okay. But like in fairness, I think I kind of had the same view for a while with like people going to Europe, right? Like they're going to France or they're going to Spain and they're going to be missionaries in Spain, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you're like, is that really missionary? Like,
I'm going to tell people about Jesus exclusively at the top of the Eiffel Tower.
right. Or like, if you're like, yeah, while
I don't know if you can go up there or not.
yeah, but, I'll go tell people about Jesus while I'm drinking my coffee at the cafes, right? Like, or whatever. So, but if you look at it not just from the materialistic side, but you look at it from the, oh my goodness, these countries need Jesus. They need to hear the gospel. That's a whole different, because, like, so for example, I mean, in Europe, I mean, Christianity is such at a low point percentage-wise throughout the continent that absolutely there's justification of sending missionaries to these areas. And so in some parts of the world would see the United States in that same way now, even if we don't see ourselves that way.
Okay.
Yeah. So so what's the difference? I kind of tend to take the perspective of the fact that, if we're here and, and we're just going about our daily lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sharing with people about Christ or, doing service or whatever it may be. Like for me, that's just being a Christian, right? Like,
right. Well, you can't do that here if you're in another country building wigwams or whatever.
Right. But if you're here doing that, like you're from America, I'm from the Atlanta, Georgia area, and I'm living in Atlanta, and I'm just going about my life, sharing Christ and this kind of thing. I'm not really being a missionary, I wouldn't say. I'm just being a Christian. Okay.
Right.
Now I could say I'm partnering.
You're on vacation. That's what you're doing.
No, I'm just living life. I'm working my job.
Yeah.
I'm
going to go tell people about Jesus on the beach in Fiji.
Okay, well, we'll get into some of those extremes in a little bit.
Let's go to Cape Cod.
Right.
And tell people about Jesus.
Okay. we'll get into some of those extreme things in a minute. But all I'm saying is living just regular
And
life.
you know where the people need to know about Jesus the most?
Where's that?
At the bar.
At the bar.
Cape Cod.
And that's where you're headed.
And that's where we're going.
Okay. Sweet. All right. So, but
hey, church, sponsor us.
all right. But so I think that's like, for me, that's just like being a Christian is just like doing good unto others. It's loving our neighbor as ourselves. It's telling people about Christ. Like that's just, for me, that's just what we are all supposed to do as Christians. Okay. And I do think it helps to make a distinction between the way we just live our lives normally as Christians and those who sacrificially choose to leave home and family to go serve Christ in another area for the sake of the gospel. I do think there's a distinction between that. And so for me, in my head, when someone says missionary, that's what I think about.
Someone who goes and lives somewhere else for the only purpose of telling people about Jesus.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm not saying that's all they're doing, okay? Because they may be involved in, humanitarian aid.
That's why they're going.
Right. Or they may have to get jobs there to be employed to actually be in that country so they can tell people about Jesus, right? For me, that's why I make a distinction. I think those that choose to go, and again, they're leaving family, they're leaving their comforts, their norms, and they're going to serve other people and other people groups for the sake of the gospel. That's, to me, in my head, when I think that's a missionary.